shared with us his journey and to where he is at today. And I'm so glad you're here today to hear him for this second service today. And I would like for you just to give a good, warm Green Country Cowboy Church welcome to Brother Scott as he comes and shares.
Maybe this one will be a little bit easier than the last one, everything, but I met April, and she had two kids. One of them was Ashton, and he knew his dad. His dad was a part of his life. Jace, he didn't know his dad. I was his dad, because he was a year old whenever we got together. So he was still in diapers, and, I took on the role as his dad, and I was honored to do it. Because whether it's your biological son or not, if you're there for your kid, you're there. You're the dad. Then we had a little boy named Hunter, and he was born with Down syndrome. And he got life-flighted from McAllister. We was living there at the time. He got life-flighted 8 times out of 11 months. And we was in the hospital with him quite a bit. But he was home this time. And he was screaming and bawling and everything. And me and April knew that something wasn't right with him. So we took him to McAllister, which they knew him well, and took him into the ER, and we figured they'd just life-flight him out. Well, they didn't this time. That doctor said there wasn't nothing wrong with him, just to send him home. He was being fussy. And me and April didn't believe that. We just went ahead and took him to to Tulsa. And we got to Bigsby. Jace was 2 at the time. We got to Bigsby, and he said that Hunter was blue. When we turned around, and Hunter wasn't breathing. And there was a car lot there that had a big pasture and all that, so I whipped in there and ran in there. My wife was trying to give CPR, and they called an ambulance and got life flight out there, and she rode with him to the hospital, and me and Jace drove the rest of the way. And when I got there, he had passed on. And from that day forward, my life changed. I was angry, so I always drank, when I was younger, just like normal people, Well, when he died, I really started drinking just to forget about everything that ever happened. I'd already made up my mind that I was going to just drink myself to death, because when I lost him, it felt like I lost everything. And I started drinking, and drinking at work, and I got to where I was drinking a 30-pack to 2 30-packs a day. And Mom, she asked me one day, she said, "How much are you drinking?" And I told her, and she said, "Scott, that's 11.5 gallons of beer a day." I said, "I got a 12-gallon tank." So she didn't find it near as amusing as I did. But all the drinking and stuff that I did, it caused a lot of havoc in the marriage. I thought I was being a good father when I wasn't being a good father, because I wasn't there. I was always gone drinking, and then when I'd come home, I'd pass out. And I went to a couple of rehabs, and the first rehab I stayed sober 2 weeks, And I told April, I said, I got this, because she started crying when I come in. She knew I'd been fishing, and I started drinking beer then. And I told her I got this. She said, okay. Well, it rocked on, and about another year or so, I guess, I went to another rehab, and I stayed 28 days there. And I come out, and I was sober for 2 or 3 months on that one, and then started drinking again. And it was just, I didn't know how to stop. I'd tried everything, just begging, didn't know where to go, what to do. And my wife started coming to church here. And well, before all this, I got 3 DUIs, and got them all within 6 months together, and 2 of them were within 3 weeks of each other. That's when I started going to jail a lot. And I got a domestic abuse charge that it got dropped, but I come home one day and I was drunk, and I told April that I wanted a divorce, and it didn't go over good at all. When I told her that, she got mad and tried to take my keys away from me, and I wouldn't let her take the keys. And I don't know if I pushed her or if she fell or what actually happened, but I got the keys from her and got them in the ignition of the truck, and she was fighting me, trying to keep me from leaving. And I finally got the truck started, and I was trying to back out, and she wouldn't move. So I went ahead and put it in reverse and made her run with the truck for a little bit. And I drove off, and then I came back. I was just going to tell her I was sorry. And she started yelling and cussing me and telling me to get out of here, and that she's calling the cops. And let me tell you, when a woman tells you she's going to call the cops, she's going to call the cops. I can promise you that. Which she needed to, because I was being a jerk. But I was real suicidal. She come in the bedroom one day, and I had a gun, and she kicked it out of my hand because I was ending it all. I mean, I'd had enough, had all I could take. I knew the kids and her had all they could take. And she started going to church out here. She's like, Scott, why don't you just go to church with us? And I didn't know anything else to do. So I started coming to church. And I didn't want to be here because I'm nervous around crowds. If you notice, I'll be off to myself, when I'm around a bunch of people. And started going to church. Well, I got saved like 2 months after I was here, but I still was drinking. But I just kept praying, that God would take the obsession away, and it started slowing down. Let me tell you, if people say that if you think right when you get saved that you're just perfect, that you ain't going to have fallings, you're just fooling yourself, because it don't change like that, or it didn't for me. It's been a struggle. But I noticed the drinking started slowing down, dwindling down, and I finally quit. And I've been sober 4 years now, and it's all God. it's nothing I've done. It's the things that God's done in my life is a miracle, because they took Jacqueline. Her mom gave her the kidney, and she's had, difficulties with it, that they thought that the kidney wouldn't make it. Then it makes it from all the prayers, because the prayers worked. They thought she had cancer and was determined that she had cancer. And everybody started praying, and I'd read Psalms 91 over her every day. And the doctors come back, and they said that there wasn't no cancer, that they were just shocked, But on August 7th, me and my wife and kids, we all went to church. We left church and went to a birthday party for my niece up there at Laharta's. Ate lunch, and April was going to see a patient. She was a home health nurse, and get blood and then go and get the kids' school clothes. And I guess when she went to get the blood, I talked to her on the phone, because I was supposed to bring her belt, and I brought the belt, but I forgot it in the back of my truck. She said, "That's okay, honey." And that was the last time I talked to her. She was headed to the hospital to drop the blood off, and the train hit them. And it killed her and Jace Remington and Ruger. And critically wounded Jacqueline. And it broke Jacqueline's collarbone, ripped her intestines. They had to take part of her intestines out and sew up her little intestine. Broke her ribs, fractured her skull, and bruised her brain, and messed up her kidney. And they didn't think that she was going to make it. Well, they thought she would leave if she did make it, that she'd leave on dialysis. Well, she's her kidney function is around 45 to 50% now, and that's all because of God. It's a miracle. After a month of laying in bed, they both their legs are broke, and they plated them. She's walking without physical therapy. She's walking. You can't keep her down, and people think that when they get saved that there's not going to be heartache and trouble in their lives. There's more trouble in their lives when they're saved than there is before, because the more you're trying to live for God, the more he's attacking you, the Satan. I asked Brother Victor that day. He come to the hospital, and I said, "I guess this was their time." He said, "No, Scott, it wasn't their time." He said that was the enemy, but he said God's going to make good out of it. And I can tell you right now, God has made good out of it. I've seen the good that's come out of it. People are looking back at their lives and looking at their loved ones and saying, we need to change. We need to get right with God, because you never know when it's going to happen. We had lunch together, then an hour later they're gone. We're not promised tomorrow. And people say, they don't understand how, or they say that they don't know how I'm standing and that there's no way they could handle it. But if you ain't been put in this position and you're right with God, you can do anything, because God has my hand. Right now, if I didn't have God, I wouldn't be a dad to Jacqueline right now. I'd probably be dead, or I'd be so deep in the bottle that there wouldn't be no coming back. And just the prayers. I mean, some people take prayer lightly, but prayer is talking to God. I mean, He hears your prayers. If it's coming from your heart, He deeply hears your prayers. He brought me from being the jerk that I was to the man I am now. He's brought my dad to church the past 2 Sundays. And I never thought my dad would ever come to church. The stuff with Hunter and Jacqueline, if I wouldn't have went through all that stuff, I don't think I'd ever found God. And I hate to say it, I'm glad that stuff did happen, because I know God now. And I'm at peace with Jason, Ruger, and Remington, and April, because I know where they are. I mean, I know where they are. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm crushed, but because you go, and everywhere you go in Poto, you've been as a family. You see that. You remember these things. Jacqueline, she's looking up at the sky the other day and said, "What are you looking at?" Jacqueline said, "I was just seeing if I could see Mama." And we told her that there'll be a cloud in the sky for Mama every day. The Mama's going to have out there for her every day. And she said, "I know." And she's handling it as an adult, because they always took, when we put flowers on Hunter's grave, she was always there and put flowers on his grave, and that's how I explained to her that that's where Mama and brothers are now, and they're up there in heaven with him. And but God does make good out of anything bad if we let Him. I mean, I could let Satan get me down right now, but I'm not going to. I mean, it's just made my faith even stronger in God, just to make Him mad. And I'm sure He's going to be hitting harder with other things. And that's in anybody's lives that has God, but they know where to turn to. And I remember when we was at Tulsa, I was sitting there on the bench, and this guy come and sat down on the other bench next to me. And I pretty much become the greeter fella over there, because I was so daggone bored. And he just sitting there, I asked him, I said, "You doing all right?" And he said, "Not really." You could tell he didn't want to say much, but I just told him my story. He just sat there. And he said, "And I'm sitting here feeling selfish for myself." And he said that his wife had cancer, and they took her for a treatment, and then she had a heart attack and was on life support. And they were going to have to take her off life support. And I just started talking to him about God. And he was agnostic. They don't believe either way, whether there's a God or there ain't a God. And he told me that day when he left, I don't remember what all I've told him, it was God just speaking through me, And he said, "You changed my life." And I said, "No, God did." And I went back up to the room to ICU, and I was in there with Jacqueline, and Mom come in there, or she met this guy in the hall that had the room 103 on his tag, and she said, "You're going with me then, I guess." And he told her who he was, and she said, "You're the guy." And he said, "Yeah." He said, "I want to come in there and give Jacqueline this penguin." He gave her a penguin and said some stuff to her, and he came over there and kissed me, and I was like, whoa. I didn't know what to think about that at first. He gave me a hug. So the big cities. But he said, you gave a new perspective on our outlook on life, And I told him, I said, "No, I didn't." I said, "God did." And then it was every day that I was down there, they would come down there. I mean, it was like we were stalking each other. And it was God putting us together is what it was all amounted to. But we'd talk every day. And the last day that he was there, he said, "I'm at peace." He said, "And it come from you giving me peace." And I said, "No." I said, "God gave you the peace." I said, he said, "But God used you to give me the peace." And I'd seen his son before that go in, and God told me to go pray over him. And I wouldn't do it. And I've never prayed over anybody before. I didn't want to do it. Well, then they come back out, and his dad was with him. And he come up there talking to me, and was just saying how the new perspective that they have on life. And God told me again, he said, "Get up and pray for them." So I got up and I prayed over them. And it was probably the worst prayer that I've ever said in my life, because I was shaking and it was just horrible. But it's God does good out of all the bad. I mean, it's just unreal. I mean, the community coming together like they have over all this. I mean, it's been unreal, all the prayers going out. People coming to church that's never came to church, that are seeing, that we need to change our lives. We need to live for God the best that we can. And I'm telling you, I make mistakes every day. I ain't standing up here telling you I'm a saint, because I ain't at all. There's stuff that we have to work on. I battle with depression. And a week before the crash, I finally went and got on medicine. But doctors, God uses doctors to help us out too. And it's just, we got to let our pride aside and let God take everything. I mean, it don't matter what it is. It can be the simplest thing, But I just know that I'm glad that I've got God in my life, and I know where my kids are, my wife is. They're a lot happier than we are right now. And, I promised them that I was going to raise Jacqueline in church like we always have, because we're going to be a family again one day. I mean, it's going to happen when it's God's time. And we're not going to let this get us down. We're going to go on. We're going to get therapy. And, everything's going to be fine. And I just wanted to thank everybody at church for all the prayers and everything that, the community coming together with donations, and just pouring their hearts out, because that means a lot to us. Victor, that's about all I've got.